The dim glow of the console lights etched shadows across Captain Elara Voss's face as she leaned forward in the command chair of the UNS Odyssey. The ship hummed softly, a relic of human engineering now repurposed by the Galactic Concordance, slicing through the void toward Sol System. Elara's fingers drummed on the armrest, a habit forged from years charting unclaimed fringes. Beside her, Navigator Cale Thorne monitored the NAV charts, his scaled brow furrowed in concentration. The Vexari were meticulous, their innate sense for stellar currents unmatched, but even Cale's calm cracked when the long-range scans flickered. "Nothing," Cale muttered, his voice a low rasp like wind over dunes. He tapped the screen, pulling up the feed again. Stars wheeled in their predictable dance, but Sol's signature, that faint persistent echo of a yellow dwarf and its rocky brood, was absent. No thermal bloom, no radio whispers. Just silence. Elara straightened, her dark eyes narrowing. She'd crewed this route a dozen times since the Concordance integrated human tech into their fleet. Earth was the anchor, the origin point for all those wild innovations that had reshaped the galaxy. Run it again. Full spectrum. Cale complied without argument, his claws clicking against the interface. The scan cycled. Infrared, electromagnetic, gravimetric. Empty. The Odyssey's engines thrummed louder in the quiet bridge, as if protesting the anomaly. Elara felt a chill unrelated to the recycled air. Humans were resilient, their history a tapestry of comebacks from extinction events and wars. But this was erasure. "Captain," came a third voice from the engineering station, steady but edged with unease. Mira Chin, the human liaison assigned to the crew, wiped grease from her hands on her jumpsuit. Her black hair was tied back in a practical knot, tools still clipped to her belt. Mira had joined after the Concordance's last treaty, bridging the gap between human grit and alien precision. If Sol's gone dark, it could be a sensor glitch. Our arrays are old, pre-integration models. Elara nodded, appreciating the practicality. Myra's words cut through the tension like a plasma torch. But doubt lingered. The galaxy had grown dependent on Earth's output. The neural nets powering Vexari trade hubs, the alloy formulas fortifying Crothian hulls. Without it, supply chains frayed. "Helm, adjust course. We'll do a manual flyby. No jumps until we confirm." Cale hesitated, his tail flicking. "That adds 3 cycles. If it's not a glitch." He trailed off, but Elara knew the unspoken. The Concordance Council would demand answers, and rumors spread faster than light in neutral space. Earth vanishing? It sounded like a ghost story, the kind humans told around campfires before they built starships. As the Odyssey banked toward the outer markers of what should have been Sol's heliopause, Elara stood and paced to the viewport. Stars blurred into streaks, indifferent. She thought of the briefings. Earth's population stabilized at 9 billion, their cities glowing like beacons. Now nothing. A knot tightened in her gut. Not fear, not yet, but the sharp awareness of a puzzle missing its keystone. Mira joined her, gaze fixed on the void. "Humans don't just disappear. We adapt. Whatever this is, we'll fix it." Elara met her eyes, seeing the unyielding spark that defined her species. "Damn right. But first we find out what broke." The ship shuddered faintly as it accelerated, carrying them into the growing shadow of uncertainty. The dim glow of the holographic star map flickered across Captain Elara's face as she paced the bridge of the Vanguard, her clawed fingers tapping rhythmically against her thigh. The Krellian vessel hummed with the low thrum of its engines, pushing through the void toward the Sol System's outer fringes. Beside her, Dr. Vorn hunched over a console, his multifaceted eyes darting across streams of data, while Lieutenant Jax leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed, his usual smirk absent for once. "Nothing," Vorn muttered, his voice a gravelly whisper through the translator. "No residual energy signatures, no warp echoes. It's as if the entire system was erased." He adjusted a dial, and the map zoomed in on the empty space where Earth should have been, a yawning black scar amid the familiar orbits of Mars and Jupiter. Elara stopped pacing, her scales bristling under her uniform. She'd led salvage ops before, charted asteroid fields riddled with pirate traps, but this felt different. The Galactic Concorde's directive had been clear: investigate the human homeworld's sudden silence. No transmissions, no beacon pings. Just absence. And now, approaching the edge of what was once their territory, the sensors picked up anomalies, fleeting distortions like heat mirages in the stars. Could be interference from the Oort cloud, Jax suggested, pushing off the wall to join them. His voice carried that easy confidence, the kind that had gotten them out of bind after bind on frontier runs. Humans were always tinkering with their tech. Maybe they cloaked the whole damn planet for some experiment gone sideways. Vorn snorted, a sound like grinding stones. Cloaked? With what? Their fusion drives were primitive, barely scraping FTL thresholds. No, this is deliberate. Or catastrophic. He pulled up a simulation, projecting a ghostly outline of the solar system as it had been 6 months ago, when the last human envoy had attended the Concord summit. Laughter in the halls, bold proposals for joint colony ventures. Then, radio silence. Alara's mind raced. She was the cautious one, the captain who weighed odds before leaping, but grit had forged her crew's loyalty. Humans had been the wild card in the galaxy. Fierce, inventive, turning scraps into weapons that humbled elder races. Without them, the Concord's edges frayed. Pirate raids up 40%, border skirmishes flaring without human mediators. If Earth was gone, the Ripple could unravel alliances she'd sworn to protect. Prep the probe launch, she ordered, her tone steady despite the knot in her gut. Standard sweep. Scan for debris, biotraces, anything. Jax, you and I suit up for the shuttle. If the probe finds a trail, we follow it manually. Jax nodded, grabbing his helmet from the rack. Aye, Cap. But if it's a trap, it's not, Vorn interrupted, though doubt shadowed his words. Humans don't trap, they innovate. Or they die trying. The probe ejected with a soft hiss, a silver dart streaking into the darkness. Minutes ticked by intense silence, broken only by the ship's ambient alerts. Alara watched the feed on the main screen, the probe's cameras capturing vast emptiness punctuated by icy comets tumbling lazily. Then, a blip. The probe veered toward a cluster of debris, twisted metal fragments glinting in the distant sun's light. Got something, Vorn announced, his claws flying over controls. Human alloy signatures. From their orbital stations, maybe. But, wait. The image sharpened, not just wreckage but patterned. Chunks arranged in a loose spiral as if scattered by design. The probe closed in, its lights piercing the shadows, and Alara's breath caught. Etched into one fragment, barely legible amid scorch marks, was a symbol, a circle bisected by a line, the ancient human glyph for pi. No, not random. A message? Before she could voice it, the feed stuttered. Static erupted across the screen, the probe's signal warping like a scream. Alarms blared, electromagnetic pulse, origin unknown. The little drone spun wildly, cameras catching a final glimpse. A shadow uncoiling from the debris, vast and tentacled, blotting out the stars. Pull it back. Alara barked, lunging for the console. Too late. The probe imploded in a silent flash, its last transmission a garbled burst of human code, coordinates, perhaps, or a warning. Jax cursed under his breath, strapping into the shuttle bay harness. Vorn's eyes widened, reflecting the dying hologram. Whatever took Earth, he said quietly, it's still here. And it's watching. Alara met their gazes, resolve hardening her features. The plan to probe safely had backfired spectacularly, drawing attention they couldn't afford. But retreat wasn't in her blood, or the Concord's. Shuttle launch in 5. We go in eyes open. For the humans, and whatever's left of them. The Vanguard shuddered as the shuttle decoupled, plunging toward the haunted fringes. Behind them, the debris field loomed larger, hiding secrets that could doom or save the stars. Captain Alara Voss gripped the console edge as the stellar drift shuddered through another asteroid belt. The ship's alarms blared a staccato rhythm, red lights pulsing like a frantic heartbeat. Beside her, Jax Harlan, the wiry engineer with grease-streaked cheeks and a perpetual squint, muttered curses under his breath while rerouting power from non-essentials. Life support's holding, but if we hit one more rock like that last one, we're venting atmosphere faster than a punctured suit. Across the cramped bridge, Dr. Lena Kai leaned over her holographic display, her fingers dancing across the interface. The xenobiologist's calm demeanor, framed by silver-streaked hair tied back in a practical knot, belied the storm in her eyes. Earth's vanishing act had left them adrift, the last human vessel with a crew of 3, scavenging the fringes of the Orion Arm. The galaxy's chatter had gone silent about Sol's system. No transmissions, no beacons, just an echoing void where the cradle of humanity once shone. "Scans show a faint signal ahead," Lena said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "Not human, Krellian maybe. It's weak, but it's the first sign of anything organized since the blackout." Elara nodded, her jaw set. Brave to a fault, she captained salvage runs before the disappearance, always the one diving into the breach. Now with Earth gone, that grit felt like the only anchor. "Helm adjust course." Jax prepped the docking clamps. "If it's a trap we bolt, but we need intel. The universe thinks we're extinct, let's remind them we're not." The ship lurched as they cleared the belt, stars wheeling into view through the viewport. The signal resolved into a derelict station, its hull pocked with micrometeor scars, orbiting a nameless gas giant. No welcoming lights, just the dim glow of emergency beacons. Jax wiped sweat from his brow. "Power grids fried. Looks like they went dark months ago. Could be automated or survivors," Elara finished, unstrapping her harness. She glanced at Lena, whose cautious nature made her the voice of reason. "You good to lead the away team? Your Krellian dialect might crack any logs." Lena hesitated, then straightened. "Better than nothing. But if it's a quarantine zone, we suit up triple time," Jax interjected with his usual wit, flashing a lopsided grin despite the tension. "I've got the suits modded with that jury-rigged EMP shield from the last haul. Won't stop a hull breach, but it'll fry any nasty surprises." They cycled through the airlock, mag boots clanging against the station's outer skin. The void stretched endlessly, the gas giant's swirling storms a hypnotic backdrop. Elara's suit lights cut through the gloom as they pried open a service hatch. Inside, corridors twisted like veins, lit by sporadic flickers from failing panels. Dust motes, alien particulates, hung in the stale air, recycled breath hissing from their packs. Deeper in, the signal source hummed faintly, a central chamber with shattered consoles and a single intact data core pulsing blue. Lena knelt before it, interfacing her portable unit. "Logs confirm, Krellian Research Outpost. They were studying warp anomalies when something hit. Mentions a shadow event originating from Sol coordinates. Coincides with Earth's last ping." Jax scanned the room, his scanner beeping warnings. "Radiation spikes here. Not natural. And look, scorch marks. Like an internal explosion." Elara's hand hovered near her sidearm, senses sharp. A low groan echoed from the vents, metal contracting in the cold. Then, movement, shadows shifting in the adjacent hall. "Contact," she whispered into comms. Eyes open. From the darkness emerged a figure, tall, scaled, Krellian by the ridges, but slumped, dragging a makeshift crutch. Its eyes, multifaceted like opals, widened at the sight of them. "Humans?" It rasped in broken galactic standard, voice amplified through a damaged translator. "Impossible. The void claimed you." Lena stepped forward, hands raised. "We're here. What happened to your station? To Earth?" The Krellian, Zyrak as it named itself, collapsed against a bulkhead, wheezing. "The absence, it spreads. Your world blinked out and the fabric tore. We sent probes, they vanished too. The galaxy fears, without your ingenuity the stars unravel." Elara exchanged glances with her crew, the weight settling like lead in her chest. Jax knelt to stabilize Zyrak, injecting a stabilizer from his medkit. But as the alien spoke of cascading anomalies, rift-swallowing colonies, Elara felt the stakes sharpen. Their ship was low on fuel, this station's reserves might be their only shot. Yet trusting a dying outpost meant risking exposure to whatever shadow lingered. "Get him stable," Elara ordered, voice firm. "Lena, download everything. Jax, scout for fuel cells. We're not leaving empty-handed, or alone." As they worked, a distant rumble shook the station, lights flickering out one by one. The shadow event wasn't done, it whispered closer, drawn by their light. Captain Elara Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the auxiliary engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The bridge of the UNS Vanguard was a cocoon of dim lights and flickering holograms, the crew's faces etched with the strain of endless scans. 3 days since the rift had swallowed Earth whole, and the galaxy was unraveling at the seams. Reports flooded in from the outer colonies, panicked transmissions from Krell outposts, where the insectoid traders hoarded supplies, whispering of omens. Even the stoic Vorith, those hulking warriors from the core worlds, had gone silent, their fleets pulling back to defensive perimeters. Any sign of the probe? Ilara asked, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. She glanced at Lieutenant Kai Rin, the wiry engineer whose fingers danced over his console like a pianist in a storm. Negative, Captain, Kai replied, not looking up. His dark eyes reflected the glow of data streams. The rift's interference is jamming everything within a light year. If it's out there, it's ghosting us. Ensign Mira Thorne, the navigator with her sharp wit dulled by fatigue, leaned forward. We could reroute through the nebula. Risky, but it might mask our approach from any observers. She hesitated on the last word, the unspoken fear hanging. Who or what was watching? The disappearance hadn't been natural. Sensors had caught a pulse, alien in signature, right before the blue marble of home vanished. Ilara nodded, weighing it. The Vanguard was their last lifeline, a battered cruiser carrying the remnants of Earth's diplomatic envoy. No grand fleet, just grit and a crew of 30 souls who'd survived the initial evacuation chaos. The challenge wasn't just finding the probe they'd launched into the rift, a desperate hail for any trace of the lost world, but doing it without sparking a galactic incident. Rumors spread faster than warp drives. Earth's gone, humans are cursed, the stars are aligning against the soft-skinned upstarts. One wrong move, and the fragile alliances could shatter into war. Plot the course, Ilara decided. But keep shields modulated low. We don't want to look like we're spoiling for a fight. As Myra's hands flew across her panel, the ship shuddered into motion, slipping toward the nebula's swirling veil of gas and dust. It was a gamble, threading through that ionized soup where sensors went blind and hulls could fry from stray plasma bursts. But caution had its limits. They needed answers, not safety. Hours blurred into a tense vigil. Kai muttered curses at his readouts, coaxing the engines past their red lines. She's holding, but if we hit a dense pocket. He trailed off, wiping sweat from his brow. Ilara appreciated his caution, the way he anticipated failures before they struck. It balanced her own drive, the unyielding push that had gotten them this far. Then, the alarms pierced the quiet, a shrill wail that snapped every head up. Contact! Mira shouted. Emerging from the nebula, bearing 047. It's a Vorith scout ship and they're hailing. Ilara's jaw tightened. The Vorith weren't known for subtlety. Their vessels were blunt instruments of spiked alloy and throbbing energy cores. If they were here, patrolling the rift's edge, it meant the fear had taken root deep. On screen, she said, straightening her uniform. The hologram flickered to life, resolving into the broad face of Commander Gruck, his tusked maw curling in what might have been a scowl or a greeting. Human vessel, he rumbled, voice like grinding gravel. You trespass on sacred watch. The void claims its own. Turn back or face the hunt. Ilara met his gaze evenly, her mind racing. Diplomacy first, always. Commander, we're on a recovery mission. No intent to encroach. Earth's loss affects us all. Surely you understand the need for closure. Gruck's eyes narrowed, multifaceted like a predator's. Your world fed the rift. Now it hungers more. We guard the balance. Share your path or we enforce it. The bridge fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Kai shot Ilara a look, his fingers hovering over the evasion protocols. Myra's hands gripped her console, knuckles white. This wasn't just a blockade. It was a test, the universe's first real pushback against humanity's desperation. Stand by, Ilara replied coolly, muting the channel. She turned to her crew. Options? We can't fight our way through, and bluffing won't hold. Kai leaned in. The nebula's our cover. We feign compliance, then dive back in. Use the probe's last signal as a beacon. It's faint, but I can amplify it with the auxiliary array. Mira shook her head. Too tight a window. One wrong vector and we're scrap. Ilara considered, the ship's hum underscoring the urgency. Gruck's patience wouldn't last. Vorith honor demanded swift resolutions. We adapt, she said finally. Kai prepped the array. Mira, plot a slingshot maneuver, Use their gravity well to bounce us clear. I'll buy us time. As she reopened the channel, Ilara forced a nod of respect. Commander, we honor your vigil. Coordinates incoming, join us if you will, but know this, Earth's absence is a wound we all feel. Help us mend it, or history will judge the stars unkind. Gruk paused, his massive form shifting. Suspicion warred with curiosity in his stance. Bold words, soft one. Transmit. The data packet flew, a half-truth laced with just enough real telemetry to seem genuine. The Vanguard's engines thrummed to life, subtly angling away while the dim glow of the console screens cast long shadows across the bridge of the Vanguard, turning the faces of the crew into masks of strained resolve. Lyra gripped the armrests of her command chair, her scaled fingers digging into the worn synth leather as the ship shuddered through another wave of gravitational distortion. The anomaly that had swallowed Earth, or whatever cataclysm had erased it, lingered like a scar in space, pulling at their hull with invisible fingers. They were 3 jumps from the core worlds now, but the data streams pouring in from the probe they'd sacrificed earlier painted a grim picture. No debris, no energy signatures, just a perfect void where the human homeworld should have been. Captain, Thorne said from his station, his voice steady but laced with the caution that defined him. The scientist adjusted his visor, eyes flicking over holographic readouts that danced like fireflies in the air. The readings are stabilizing, but we're detecting microfluctuations in the quantum field. It's as if the fabric of space-time is healing itself around the absence. If we push closer, we risk the same fate. Lyra nodded, her mind racing through contingencies. She was the brave one, the one who'd volunteered for the suicide run when the Galactic Concorde panicked and no one else would. But bravery didn't fill the fuel tanks or mend a failing warp core. Their small crew, her, Thorne, the sharp-tongued pilot Vex, and the enigmatic AI fragment they'd salvaged from a derelict human outpost, had come too far to turn back. The universe's greatest fear wasn't the void itself, it was what the humans might unleash from within it. Or worse, what their absence meant for everyone else. Vex spun in her chair, her furred ears twitching with irritation. Stabilizing? That's your word for about to bite us in the tail? I've flown through nebulae thicker than this soup, but this feels wrong. Like the stars are holding their breath. She punched a sequence into her panel, diverting power from non-essentials to the shields. The lights dimmed further, plunging the bridge into a moody twilight. Vex was the wit in their trio, always quick with a quip to cut the tension, but even she couldn't hide the edge in her voice now. The AI's voice chimed in softly from the overhead speakers, a calm, synthesized baritone that echoed the humans they'd never meet. Projection complete. Based on archived human tactical data, the anomaly exhibits properties similar to a phase shift weapon. Probability of natural occurrence, 0.03%. Recommendation: abort approach and relay findings to Concorde Central. Lyra's jaw tightened. Abort? After the Council's endless debates, the rival factions vying for control of the human tech they'd reverse-engineered? No. Earth's disappearance had already sparked skirmishes on the fringes, Krigari raiders hitting supply lines, Zenthari diplomats whispering of omens. If the humans had engineered this, vanished to regroup in some shadow dimension, the galaxy would fracture. And if not, the cost of ignorance would be war over scraps. Maintain course, Lyra ordered, her voice cutting through the hum of the engines. Thorne refined the probe data. Vex, plot a slingshot maneuver around the outer edge, keep us at minimum safe distance. We need eyes on that void, not guesses. Thorne hesitated, his fingers hovering over the controls. Captain, the last probe didn't transmit visuals. Just stopped. Like it was erased midstream. The ship lurched again, harder this time, alarms blaring in staccato bursts. Vex cursed under her breath, wrestling the yoke as inertial dampeners whined in protest. Got incoming turbulence, looks like debris field forming. Tiny stuff but moving fast. Shields at 72%. Lyra unstrapped and moved to the viewport, pressing her palm against the cool transparisteel. Beyond, the stars warped into streaks, and in the center the black maw of the anomaly yawned, a perfect circle of nothing ringed by faint auroras that pulsed like a heartbeat. One striking image burned into her mind, a single human satellite tumbling lazily into view, its solar panels glinting like forgotten jewelry before the pull yanked it inward, vanishing without a trace. Divert power to forward arrays, she snapped. Thorn, scan for any human signals. Anything. If they're out there, screaming for help or plotting revenge, we find it now. As Thorn complied, the console before him flickered, then bloomed with anomalous code, fractured bursts of human binary weaving through their systems like invasive roots. The AI's voice glitched. Intrusion detected. Source unknown. Isolating, but it was too late. The lights surged, then died, plunging them into darkness broken only by the emergency reds. Vex's hands flew across her board. Warp cores spiking. We're being pulled in, manual override failing. Lyra's heart pounded, the weight of command settling like lead. Their plan to skirt the edge had backfired spectacularly. The anomaly wasn't passive. It was hungry and it had tasted their probe. Now it reached for them. All hands brace. Vex, give me everything you've got, reverse thrust now. The Vanguard groaned, metal protesting as engines roared to life. Thorn shouted readings, hull integrity dropping, shields collapsing, but Lyra focused on the viewport where the void loomed larger, swallowing stars. In that moment, the universe's fear crystallized. Not the absence of Earth, but the terrifying possibility that humanity's ingenuity had birthed something unstoppable. And they were flying straight into its jaws. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the Stellaris engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with static, the remnants of the hyperspace rift that had swallowed their scout probe whole. Beside her, Engineer Tomas Hale wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers dancing over the console as he recalibrated the sensors for the third time. It's not a glitch, he muttered, his voice steady but edged with frustration. The readings are real. Whatever that anomaly is, it's pulling in mass from light years away. Lieutenant Kira Novak, the team's xenobiologist, leaned against the bulkhead, her sharp eyes scanning the data streams. She was the cautious one, always questioning the rush of discovery with a reminder of the unknown's teeth. And it's not just pulling, it's converting. Energy signatures match nothing in our databases. If this is tied to Earth's vanishing, we can't afford to poke it blindly. Her words hung in the air, a quiet anchor amid the rising tension. Ilara nodded, her jaw set. She was the brave core of the crew, the one who charged into voids when others hesitated. But even she felt the weight of the galaxy's fear pressing down. Earth's sudden absence 6 months ago had unraveled alliances. Species that once dismissed humans as primitives now whispered of cosmic curses. The Stellaris was their desperate bid, a human-led vessel, crewed by the remnants of scattered colonies, racing to unravel the mystery before panic ignited interstellar war. Options. Ilara asked, her voice cutting through the bridge's hum. Tomas straightened, his wiry frame taut with ingenuity. We could deploy the auxiliary drone, the one with the reinforced shielding. It'll give us a closer look without risking the ship. But the rift's instability means we might lose it too. And that's our last one. Kira crossed her arms. Or we loop back to the relay station at Vega Prime, call for backup. The Alliance fleet is mobilizing. They owe us for the intel on the border skirmishes. Ilara's gaze flicked to the view screen, where the rift pulsed like a wound in space, tendrils of distorted light reaching out. The cost of caution gnawed at her. Time lost meant more worlds questioning humanity's role, more fractures in the fragile peace. No. We've come this far on our own grit. Tomas prepped the drone. Kira monitor for biosigns. If there's any trace of Earth in there, we find it now. As Tomas initiated the launch sequence, the ship shuddered. Alarms blared, secondary readings spiking from an unexpected quarter. Not the rift, but something emerging from its edge. A shadow detached, sleek and angular, bearing the insignia of the Vorath Collective. Rivals in the race for answers. The Vorath had long-eyed human tech with covetous hunger. Their vessel, smaller but faster, sliced through the void toward the Stellaris. They're hailing, Kira said, her tone sharpening. Ilara's hand hovered over the comms. The challenge had shifted, no longer just the rift's hunger but the Vorath's ambition. One wrong move, and the galaxy's fear of Earth's absence would pale against the spark of open conflict. Open the channel. Let's see what they're after. The Vorath commander's face materialized, scaled and impassive, eyes gleaming with calculated menace. Human vessel, this anomaly is under collective jurisdiction. Power down and prepare for boarding. Tomas cursed under his breath, fingers flying to seal bulkheads. Kira shot Alara a look. We should have looped back asterisk. But the captain's resolve held firm. Negative, Alara replied, her voice steel. We're here for answers, same as you. Stand down or we'll treat this as a threat. The line crackled with silence, then the Vorith vessel accelerated, weapons arrays glowing. Alara slammed the alert klaxon. Evasive maneuvers. Tomas, get that drone out, now. The Stellaris banked hard, engines roaring as it dodged the first plasma volley. The drone ejected in a burst of thrusters, streaking toward the rift like a thrown spear. But the Vorith ship closed fast, its boarding pods launching in a deadly swarm. Tension coiled through the bridge. Camaraderie forged in crisis bound them. Ilara's boldness, Tomas's quick fixes, Kira's steady warnings. A pod latched onto the hull with a metallic screech, breaching alarms wailing. Intruders in engineering, Tomas reported, grabbing a stun baton. I'll hold them off. Go, Ilara ordered, already plotting a counter. Kira moved to her side, prepping the rift probe's remote link. The plan to probe the anomaly backfired into a firefight, stakes rising as the Vorith sought to claim not just the rift but human secrets. In the chaos, the drone pierced the rift's veil, transmitting fragmented images, swirling voids laced with familiar spectral lines, Earth's signature twisted but alive. Hope flickered, but so did the ship's lights as power diverted to shields. Ilara gripped the controls, whispering to herself, not today. The battle for truth had just begun, and the universe watched, fearing what humans might unleash. The dim glow of the auxiliary console flickered across Captain Ilara Voss's face as she hunched over the scanner readouts. Her fingers, calloused from years of gripping controls under fire, danced across the haptic interface, pulling data from the void where Earth should have been. The ship, Odyssey's Echo, hummed with a low thrum of strained engines, pushing through the debris field that marked the outer edge of Sol's former territory. It had been weeks since the vanishing, since the galaxy's comms lit up with panic, every species from the crystalline Vexery to the nomadic Krell whispering about the whole humans had punched in reality itself. Beside her, Lyratin, the Vexery xenobiologist, adjusted her breathing mask with a series of soft clicks, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the star charts like shattered prisms. The residual quantum echoes are stabilizing, she said, her voice a melodic rasp translated through the ship's linguamod. But they point to a rift, not a collapse. Your species tech must have triggered it, those orbital arrays you built for faster-than-light trials. Ilara shot her a sidelong glance, her jaw tight. Blame us later. Right now, we need a way through without getting shredded. She was the last human out here, or so it seemed. The Echo had been on a routine diplomatic run to the Vexery core worlds when the alerts hit. Billions gone in a blink, and the universe, for all its vastness, had turned its gaze inward, hoarding resources and sealing borders. No one wanted to be next. The third aboard, RYK, the grizzled Krell engineer, snorted from his station at the engineering panel. His furred arms, scarred from a dozen hull breaches, flexed as he rerouted power. Rift or not, this junk field's chewing our shields. One more graze from those asteroids and we're space dust. Ingenious plan, Voss. Fly blind into the graveyard. Keep it witty, RA, Ilara replied, though her voice carried no humor. She tapped a sequence, overlaying the scans with predictive algorithms. The display bloomed with holographic probabilities, threads of energy weaving through the rocks like veins in stone. One path looked viable, narrow but clear, a gamble on human intuition over alien caution. Lyra leaned closer, her tendrils quivering. The risk is asymmetrical. If we breach the rift, we might locate the displacement vector for Earth. But failure means entropic feedback. Your people, they adapt. Show me how. Ilara nodded, masking the knot in her gut. Earth's absence wasn't just a loss, it was a mirror forcing the galaxy to confront what humans had brought, unyielding drive, the kind that built empires from dust and now threatened to unravel them. She punched the coordinates. Strap in. We're threading the needle. The ship lurched as thrusters fired, weaving between tumbling remnants of what might have been a moonlet. Alarms blared, a proximity warning as a shard the size of a frigate spun into view, its surface pitted with the faint scars of old human mining ops. RYK's paws flew over his controls, diverting auxiliary power to the deflectors. A shudder ran through the hull, metal groaning like a beast in pain. "Shields at 60%, he growled. "This was your species' playground once. Got any old tricks up your sleeve?" Ilara's mind raced, pulling from half-remembered briefings. The arrays, those experimental FTL nodes, had been laced with adaptive shielding designed to repel cosmic rays. If the rift echoed that tech, Lyra cross-referenced the echoes with Soul Alliance shield harmonics. "RYK, modulate our emitters to match." The Vexary's eyes widened, facets shifting colors. "Harmonics? You're syncing with the anomaly itself?" Her clicks quickened in what Ilara guessed was excitement laced with dread. She complied, fingers blurring as data streamed. The echo dove deeper, the debris closing like jaws. Ilara gripped the armrests, her pulse syncing with the engine's roar. A larger fragment loomed, blocking the path, a colossal hunk of regolith, veined with iridescent or that screamed artificial. Impact in 10 seconds. Modulation holding. RYK bellowed. The ship's hull shimmered, a faint blue aura enveloping it as the shields resonated. The asteroid grazed them, but instead of crumpling metal, the contact rippled outward, the fragment veering away as if repelled by an invisible hand. They burst through, the field thinning to reveal a shimmering veil ahead. The rift, a tear in space that pulsed with stolen starlight. Scans lit up, faint signatures human in origin, threading beyond. "We did it," Lyra breathed, her mask fogging slightly. "But the feedback, it's pulling. We can't linger." Ilara exhaled, leaning back. The triumph was bittersweet. Earth's shadow lingered in every reading, a reminder that their ingenuity had birthed this chaos. One step closer. "But if the galaxy's right to fear us, it's because we don't stop." She set course, the echo slipping into the unknown, leaving the debris, and their doubts, behind. Yet in the quiet hum, she felt the weight. Whatever waited on the other side might demand more than cleverness. It might demand everything. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the console edge as the stellar drift's alarms blared in staccato bursts, the ship's hull groaning under the strain of the nebula's electromagnetic fury. Her crew, Jax, the wiry engineer with a perpetual squint from years in engine bays, and Mira, the sharp-tongued navigator whose optimism had frayed like old rigging, huddled nearby, their faces lit by the flickering holoscreens. They were humans, the last whispers of a vanished homeworld, and out here in the void where Earth had blinked out of existence, survival meant outsmarting the stars themselves. "Shields at 30%, Jax muttered, his fingers flying over the patched-together panel. Sweat beaded on his brow, but his voice stayed steady, a trait Ilara relied on like a second heartbeat. The nebula wasn't just a storm, it was a graveyard of forgotten probes, its tendrils laced with radiation that clawed at their systems. They'd come here chasing rumors, whispers from alien outposts that something from Earth's final days had hidden in this haze, a beacon or a weapon that could explain the silence from Sol. Mira punched coordinates into her display, her lips pressed thin. "If we angle through that density pocket, we might shave off the worst of it. But it'll fry the auxiliary thrusters." She glanced at Ilara, eyes challenging yet trusting. They'd argued routes before, but never like this, with the ship's core temperature climbing and the external scans picking up anomalous energy signatures, pulses that didn't match the nebula's chaos. Ilara nodded, her decision quick, born from the grit that had kept them alive since the Exodus. "Do it. Jax, reroute power from life support if you have to. We need those scans clear." The air recyclers hummed lower already, a faint staleness creeping in, but hesitation would doom them faster. She strapped into the command chair, the worn leather creaking under her, and watched as Mira initiated the burn. The ship lurched, engines roaring defiance against the pull. Purple wisps of ionized gas streaked past the viewport, one vivid arc slamming into their bow like a cosmic hammer. Alarms spiked, and Jax cursed under his breath, wrestling a cascade of error codes. "Got a breach in the outer hull, sealing it now." His hands, calloused and sure, danced across the controls, improvising a patch from scavenged alien alloys that no manual had ever endorsed. Through the turmoil, the scans sharpened. There, amid the static, a shape emerged, not debris but structure. A massive ring half buried in the nebula's heart, its surface etched with familiar glyphs, human script, faded but unmistakable. Alara's pulse quickened. That's one of ours. Pre-disappearance tech. Could be the relay array from the old defense grid. Myra's eyes widened, her voice cutting through the din. If it's intact, we could broadcast a signal strong enough to reach the core worlds. Show the galaxy we're not ghosts. But doubt flickered in her tone. The ring's orbit was unstable, dragging toward a collapsing star fragment that would pulverize anything in its path. Jax wiped his forehead, the ship steadying as they cleared the pocket. Approaching vector. But Captain, that thing's powering up on its own. Energy readings off the charts, it's reacting to us. The console lit with warnings, the ring's pulses sinking to their engines as if awakening to kin. Alara leaned forward, the weight of command settling heavier. They'd lost too much already, friends to pirate raids, hope to endless searches, but this felt like a thread to pull, risky as it was. Match its frequency. Let's see if Earth's shadow still has teeth. The crew moved as one, their bond forged in the fire of absence, pushing the drift closer to the relic that might rewrite the star's fear of the quiet humans. Yet as the ring loomed, a new scan pinged. Inbound signatures, not nebula echoes but pursuers, rival salvagers, drawn by the same whispers, their weapons hot and closing fast. The cost of discovery was here, demanding payment in blood or cunning. Elena gripped the railing of the observation deck, her knuckles whitening as the stars blurred past the viewport. The Odysseus engines hummed with a strain she could feel in her bones, pushing them deeper into the nebula's glowing heart. Raj hunched over the console beside her, his fingers dancing across holographic displays, sweat beading on his forehead despite the recycled air's chill. "They're gaining," Marco said from the engineering alcove, his voice steady but edged with that familiar caution. He wiped grease from his hands on his jumpsuit, eyes flicking to the rear sensors. "That Krell scout ship's cutting through the gas clouds like they're not even there. If we don't lose them soon, our fusion core's going to redline." Elena nodded, not trusting her voice yet. The nebula had seemed like a perfect hideout, an uncharted swirl of ionized hydrogen, a graveyard of ancient stellar debris. But the Krell, those relentless insectoid hunters from the rim worlds, had sniffed them out. Earth's vanishing had left humanity scattered, and relics like the Odyssey were prime targets. A mobile archive of human tech, knowledge, and grit. Lose this ship, and another piece of their legacy crumbled. Raj straightened, a spark of his usual wit breaking through. "Redline? Please. I've rerouted the auxiliary plasma vents to mask our exhaust signature. It's like hiding a fart in a hurricane." He tapped a final command, and the ship shuddered as secondary thrusters fired in erratic bursts, weaving them through a cluster of glowing filaments. The maneuver bought them space. Alarms quieted for a breath, but Elena's mind raced. Their plan to scavenge the nebula's core for rare isotopes, a desperate bid to refuel, had backfired spectacularly. The Krell weren't just after the ship. They'd laid claim to the nebula's resources, patrolling it like wolves over a carcass. One wrong turn, and they'd be boarded, dissected for whatever anomalous biology the aliens prized in humans. "Captain," Marco interrupted her thoughts, pointing to a flickering anomaly on the NAV chart. "There's a derelict up ahead, old Union freighter half buried in an asteroid field. If we dock and power down, we might pass as wreckage. Risky. Too exposed." But the alternative was a straight chase, and the Odyssey's patchwork repairs wouldn't hold. Elena met Raj's gaze. He gave a subtle nod, his optimism a quiet anchor. "Do it," she said. Marco prepped the docking clamps. "Raj, spoof our IFF to mimic that freighter's signature." As the ship banked toward the shadowed hulk, the nebulous tendrils lit up behind them, framing the pursuing Krell vessel like a predator's silhouette. Elena's hand hovered over the emergency purge. Last resort, venting their data vaults to deny the enemy anything. But not yet. Not while they had moves left. Docking was a grind of metal on metal, the clamps biting into the freighter's corroded hull with a groan that echoed through the corridors. They killed the lights, the hum of life support dropping to a whisper. In the dim emergency glow, the team gathered in the cargo bay, suits sealed, weapons drawn, improvised human designs, pulse rifles cobbled from mining tools. "They're scanning," Raj murmured, monitoring his portable rig. "Close pass." Hold breath, everyone. Seconds stretched. Elena's pulse thrummed in her ears. Then, a distant ping, active sensors sweeping past. The Krell ship slowed, orbiting the asteroid field, but didn't engage. Relief washed over her, sharp and fleeting. Marco exhaled. We bought time. But they're not leaving. That freighter's got salvage potential. They'll circle back. Elena scanned the bay, her eyes landing on a sealed crate half forgotten in the Odyssey stores, Earthside relics, smuggled cultural artifacts. Amid the practical tools, something clicked. A set of antique magnetic grapples, relics from humanity's first orbital ops. Primitive but versatile. Team, she said, voice low and resolute, we turn the tables. Raj, can you rig those grapples to the drone swarm? Marco, plot a path through the asteroids. We're not hiding anymore, we're luring them in. Raj's grin flashed in the low light. Human ingenuity, turning junk into a trap. I like it. As they worked, the nebula's glow seeped through cracks in the freighter's hull, casting long shadows. The Krell loomed outside, oblivious, but Elena knew the cost of failure. Not just the ship, but the stories, the blueprints, the unyielding human spark they'd carry forward. This gambit had to work, or the universe's fear of Earth's absence would claim another ghost. Captain Ilera Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the Aurora's engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with the debris field ahead, a graveyard of shattered hulls from the Krell armada that had ambushed them hours ago. Her crew, what was left of them, moved with grim efficiency. Lieutenant Kai Renar at navigation, his fingers dancing over holographic controls. Dr. Lyra Voss, her sister and the ship's xenobiologist, monitoring the alien artifact they'd salvaged. And Sergeant Tomas Hale, the burly Marine patching a hull breach with makeshift welds. We've got incoming, Kai said, his voice steady but edged with fatigue. The scanner pinged, 3 Krell interceptors, sleek predators closing from the asteroid's shadow. Ilera's mind raced. The artifact pulsed in the hold, its energy signature a beacon drawing every hunter in the sector. Earth's silence had started this nightmare 6 months ago, the planet vanishing in a blink, leaving humanity's colonies scattered and the galaxy in panic. The Krell thought they could claim the void left behind, but this relic from the old Terran archives hinted at why Earth was gone, and how to bring it back. Evade pattern Delta, Ilera ordered, her voice cutting through the tension. Kai nodded, banking the ship hard. The Aurora groaned as inertial dampeners strained, stars streaking past. But the Krell were faster, their plasma lances already charging. A hit rocked them, alarms blaring from engineering. Tomas, status? Ilera called. Containment holding, but that last shot cracked the outer plating, he grunted, sweat beading on his brow. We're venting Atmo in Bay 3. Lyra's console lit up. The artifact's reacting, it's syncing with our core. If we don't stabilize it, it'll overload and take us with it. Ilera's jaw tightened. Their plan had been simple. Slip through the debris, deliver the artifact to the neutral outpost on Rigel 7, where Alliance scientists could decode its signal. Earth's absence wasn't destruction. It was a fold, a dimensional shift the relic could reverse. But the Krell, fearing humanity's return would shatter their expansion, had turned the route into a kill zone. The early feint, decoying with a drone swarm, had bought them time, but now it backfired. The interceptors were herding them toward the dense asteroid cluster, where maneuverability meant nothing. Options? She asked, eyes on the screen. The lead Krell ship loosed a barrage, forcing Kai to roll the Aurora into a spin. Shards of rock pinged off the shields. Kai glanced back. We could use the debris for cover, slingshot around that big rock. Risky, might shear us apart. Or dump the artifact, Tomas added, wiping his hands on his jumpsuit. Buy time to jump. Lyra shot him a glare. And doom billions? No. It's adapting, look. She projected the data, the relic's frequencies weaving into the ship's systems, boosting power output by 20%. But it was volatile, like a star on the verge of supernova. Ilera waited, the weight of command pressing like gravity. Her father's voice echoed in memory, a grizzled colony miner who'd taught her that survival meant bending, not breaking. Kai, execute the slingshot. Lyra, channel the artifact's surge into shields. Tomas, prep the railguns, manual targeting if we lose automation. The ship dove into the field, engines screaming. Asteroids loomed, jagged silhouettes against the void. The Krell pursued, firing wildly, one bolt grazing an outcrop and sending a wave of fragments their way. Kai threaded the needle, the Aurora shuddering as a boulder clipped their wing. Sparks flew in the bridge. Now! Elara barked. Tomas fired, the railgun slugs ripping through the vacuum. One interceptor exploded in a silent bloom of fire, but the others flanked them. Lyra's hands blurred over her panel, rerouting energy. The shields flared blue, absorbing a direct hit that would have vaporized them otherwise. The artifact thrummed, its hum resonating in Elara's bones, a promise of home amid the chaos. They burst from the cluster, momentum carrying them toward open space. But the lead Krell matched their vector, locking tractor beams. "They're pulling us in," Kai warned. Elara stood, resolve hardening. Override safeties. Full burn on auxiliary thrusters. Break free or burn out. The Aurora surged, the artifact's power lending an unnatural kick. Metal groaned, but the beams snapped. Alarms wailed as systems overheated, lights dimming. The Krell ship veered, damaged but closing for a boarding run. In the respite, Lyra turned, eyes wide. The signal, it's broadcasting. Earth's coordinates are locking in. Hope flickered, but so did the cost. The overload had fried half their life support. Oxygen ticking down, the outpost still light years away. Elara met her sister's gaze. "We finish this. Together." Tomas chambered another round, a grim smile cracking his face. "Damn right, Cap." As the Krell loomed larger, the stars seemed to hold their breath, the universe's fear of Earth's return manifesting in the fight before them. Captain Elara Voss gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the Odyssey's engines vibrating through the deck like a distant heartbeat. The view screen flickered with static, the nebulous tendrils clawing at the ship's shields, but her eyes were locked on the sensor readouts. The alien fleet, those sleek, obsidian vessels of the Zorith Collective, had hemmed them in, their energy webs pulsing with lethal intent. 3 days since Earth's signal vanished, and now this, a blockade around the very jump point that could lead back to Sol. "Shields at 70%, Lieutenant Kai Ren reported from Tactical, his voice steady but edged with the strain of endless shifts. Kai, ever the pragmatist, wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers dancing over consoles that sparked intermittently from overload. He wasn't one for dramatics. His caution had saved them twice already, rerouting power just before hull breaches. Elara nodded, her mind racing through contingencies. The crew was down to bones, 20 survivors from a complement of 200, after the ambush that claimed the rest. Dr. Mira Singh, the xenobiologist, huddled in the corner with her makeshift lab, analyzing fragments of Zorith tech scavenged from debris. Myra's wit had kept morale flickering. "Even now," she muttered, "if these bastards think a little cosmic fog will stop us, they've never met a human with a deadline." The external challenge loomed larger than the nebulous crush. The Zorith weren't just blockading, they were harvesting the jump lane's residual energy, siphoning it to fuel their expansion. Earth's absence had tipped the balance. Without humanity's unpredictable alliances, the collective saw an opportunity to dominate the core worlds. The risk was total. If the Odyssey failed to punch through, the last tether to human space would snap, leaving the galaxy to assume extinction. "Initial plans toast," Elara said, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. She plotted a straight burn through the web, banking on the ship's human-engineered inertial dampeners to outmaneuver their precision fire. But the Zorith adapted faster than expected, their drones swarming like angry hornets, forcing a retreat into the nebula's heart. Kai leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the holograph. "We adapt or we die, Captain. That salvage Myra's got, it's got a harmonic disruptor signature. If we jury-rig it to the forward arrays." Mira perked up, sliding over with a data slate clutched in grease-stained hands. "It's crude but viable. The Zorith tech resonates at a frequency that destabilizes their own shields. We overload it here." She tapped the schematic, her enthusiasm belying the exhaustion lines on her face, "and it creates a ripple. Not enough to take the fleet, but it could blind their sensors for a window." Elara waited, the earnest pull of adventure warring with the stakes. One wrong pulse, and the Odyssey would crumple like foil. But surrender meant erasure, the universe's fear of Earth's void becoming prophecy. "Do it. Kai, you handle integration. Mira, calibrate the frequencies." We move in 5. The team sprang into action, the bridge alive with clipped commands and the sizzle of welding torches. Elara watched, her resolve hardening. Grit had carried them this far, human ingenuity turning scraps into salvation. As the disruptor hummed to life, a low thrum that set teeth on edge, she felt the camaraderie solidify, a quiet triumph in their shared defiance. The first volley hit as they emerged from the nebulous shroud, Zorith beams lancing through the haze. Alarms wailed, but Kai's voice rose above, ripple deploying, now. A wave of distorted energy bloomed from the bow, invisible but for the way it warped the stars. Zorith's ships faltered, their formations fracturing as sensors fried. Elara punched the throttles, the Odyssey surging forward in a burst of raw acceleration. Drones clipped the hull, sparks flying, but they broke through, the jump point yawning open like a maw. They tumbled into the vortex, the ship groaning under the strain. Behind them, the web collapsed in a cascade of failing lights, the collective's grasp slipping. But as the stars realigned, Elara's console beeped, a faint signal, distorted but unmistakable. Not from Earth, but from beyond, a human colony whispering of survival. The cost lingered in the scars, Kai nursing a burned arm, Myra's lab half melted, and the bridge dimmed by flickering backups. Yet in that moment, as the Odyssey hurtled toward uncertain allies, the universe's fear began to crack, pierced by the unyielding light of human persistence. The bridge of the Vanguard hummed with the low thrum of engines straining against the void, lights flickering as the ship's shields buckled under the onslaught. Captain Elara Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair, her knuckles white, eyes locked on the viewscreen where the Kragath Armada loomed like jagged shadows against the stars. Their flagship, a behemoth of spiked hulls and pulsing energy lances, had cornered them after the ambush in the nebula's edge. The alien fleet, once dismissive of human relics, now hunted with a fervor born of desperation, their empire crumbling without the subtle human tech they'd scavenged for centuries. Shields at 20%, Lieutenant Rao reported from Tactical, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. He was the cautious one, always double-checking scans, but now his fingers flew across the console, rerouting power with grim efficiency. They're locking weapons. We can't take another volley. Elara nodded, her mind racing through the fragments of data they'd pieced together since discovering the truth. Earth wasn't destroyed. It had vanished deliberately, a collective withdrawal after the galaxy bled them dry. Resources, innovations, lives. Humanity's absence had unraveled the stars, turning predators like the Kragath into scavengers fighting over scraps. But the Vanguard's crew, a ragtag mix of survivors from scattered colonies, carried the spark, old Earth ingenuity, grit forged in forgotten labs. Jam their comms, she ordered, turning to Dr. Lena Kai at the engineering station. Lena, the witty core of their trio, flashed a crooked smile even as sparks danced from her panel. Already on it, Cap. That little EMP pulse we jury-rigged from the salvaged probe? It's singing their frequencies a lullaby. The plan had backfired earlier. The nebula's interference had amplified the pulse, alerting the entire armada instead of slipping them through. Now trapped, they adapted. Rao's scans had revealed a weakness in the Kragath's formation. Their central dreadnought relied on synchronized drone swarms, vulnerable if isolated. Launch the decoys, Elara said. Small pods erupted from the Vanguard, mimicking distress signals, drawing a wing of fighters away. The ship lurched as the dreadnought fired, a lance of plasma grazing their hull. Alarms wailed, but Lena's hands danced faster, sealing breaches with makeshift seals from cargo bay foam and circuit scraps. Come on, you oversized tin cans, Ra muttered, his caution yielding to a rare spark of defiance. He triggered the secondary hack. A virus uploaded from their database of ancient human code, designed to overload the drone's navigation. On the view screen, the swarms stuttered, colliding in bursts of fire like fireworks gone wrong. The dreadnought veered, its commander no doubt bellowing orders in their guttural tongue, but it was too late. Elara punched the thrusters, the Vanguard twisting through the chaos with a maneuver pulled from outdated flight sims, human muscle memory encoded in the ship's AI. They slipped past the faltering line, Rao's precise adjustments dodging debris. As the armada fractured behind them, chasing ghosts, Lena leaned back, wiping her face. That was too close. Think they'll learn? Ilara allowed a tight smile, the stars stretching ahead toward uncharted space. They'll fear the absence more now. But we're not hiding forever. The cost lingered, half their supplies gone, Rao nursing a burn from the overload, and the galaxy forever changed by one small ship's stand. Yet in the quiet hum of escape, camaraderie bound them tighter, Earth's legacy not lost but reborn in the void.